Back at work, you see me back at Encore. A lot of great records, a lot of history here. Dr. Dre, for myself personally, Dr. Dre, Eminem, Exhibit, Snoop Dogg. So this is a A820 Studer tape machine. You know what I'm saying? Look at it, it's a beast. Right now, this is a big heater in the room. It takes up space in the corner. It just, usually used to have 2 tape machines here, and you used to put your reels on there, and you had your tape heads, you cleaned your head, you put your reels on there, you see your tracks up here, and you just saw everything. It was all right there. You saw it all. And then back then, look at this. This is the 2-inch. Look at how big this is, man. So then it's one of the things that I miss the most as we open this box, man, a lot of people tell you is the track sheet. See, the track sheet was the roadmap to the whole song. It told you what was on each track, the kick, the snare, the hi-hat, the tambourine. Everything was written out. Studio, what day you did it, who was the engineer, who was the producer, the tempo. A lot of times people do sessions in Pro Tools, don't even put the tempo in there. You're trying to figure it out. You try to seeking something else to pop it in. I know that, you can just put it in there and shift it and shit like that, but I'm just saying in general, that stuff ain't in there. Engineer, the levels, what you were doing, and then you just had a lot of space to just write it out. You'd write little notes. The lead vocal was done on this day. Everything was straightforward. You'd write overdubs, switch mics, the back of the track sheet. You'd write what mic pre's, compressor, what studio, where you did it at, if you EQ'd it a special way. You just had everything on there. And this is one of the things that I miss. And I miss this big beast right here. This beast, yo, man. We had a lot of good times together, me and the 2-inch, man. Back in the day, we used to do a lot of vocals. First, you would do the drums on your first couple tracks. Then you'd first always start with the hook. Because the hook, you needed so many tracks for the hooks. You need to double it and triple it and quad it, harmonies, this and that. So we'd take up these other tracks, maybe like 17 through 24, 15, all this in here. You'd get a blend, and then you would just sample it, and then you would erase the tracks, and you'd fly the hooks back in. So everything, got sampled into the MPC. You would fly it back into places, then you would erase it, and then just keep building from there, build the verse, da-da-da. And you had 24 tracks, and then you had another 24 tracks. So most sessions in hip-hop really were 24 tracks, but with Dre and some of the other West Coast cats that were real musical, added a lot of keyboards, a lot of instruments, a lot of overdubs, sound effects here and there. We'd always have to jump to the second reel and have 2 tape machines. We'd have like 48 tracks. Sometimes put 2, 3, 4 sounds on the same track. You'd have to mult it out on the board and, and really get it all in there and get all the music, get all the instruments, let the musicians have their time to breathe and play around and build the song up and down. And we did that. Now with Pro Tools, you're, endless tracks, 100, 200 tracks. If you have an HG rig like this, look at right next to it, the new technology, the new kid on the block. The HD rig, it's endless possibilities, endless plugins, endless tracks, endless, effects processing, but the stuff that you can never get rid of in the studio, the O2 compressors, 2 BQs, all this stuff, the Gen X, the APIs, man, this is my baby right here, the AMS reverb, my main reverb right here, this baby. When you change rooms and you change studios, the appearance of the room will change, but you still have your staple of outboard gear that keeps you going, your reverbs, your EQs, your H3000s, you always need de-essers. Back of the track sheet again, you get it, you're like, oh, we use this reverb, okay, what was our settings? Boom, you write your settings down, boom, 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 boom. You have to take notes, and as an assistant or as an intern, when you saw what people are using, what outboard gear, why they use that reverb, and then you just start asking questions, do this and that, and then you would start to build your technique. When you had some downtime, you'd be like, oh, I saw so-and-so use this reverb, let me see how it sounds. And studios would let you come in as your intern assistants, and you would get your own techniques and your own things. And, you always use these bad boys on bass, 808s, kicks to give it that, that sub that just like you can't get anywhere else. And, it's a lot of different stuff that I feel is lost in the teachings of becoming an engineer when you don't have to take notes and you don't see what other people are doing. You open up a session in Pro Tools, it loads up, it continues where you started, where you left off, and it's just like, you're just continuing, you're not really in there doing it. So we have the Pultec EQ here. This particular EQ, being tubes, it has really a warmth, a really natural low-end sound that you just can't get anywhere else. And so, you got your preset frequencies here. You got your 20, 30, 60, and 100 hertz. You know what I'm saying? You got your, boost and minus. Plus and boost, attenuate, plus and minus. You got your bandwidth, and your bandwidth basically is how narrow or wide you want the frequencies to be affected around the particular frequency you're choosing. So up here you have to the kilocycles, and you got your 3K to 16K, and also your plus and minus, and then your attenuation on the high end. So it's like, this is a very straightforward EQ presets, and then you got like something like the GML here, the George Massenburg EQ. You got 2 lows, a mid, 2 highs, but really each one crosses over to the other one's frequencies. If you can see, this red one goes from 15 hertz to 8K, and so does the one next to it, and then actually the first 3, and then as you go higher, it starts at 4K to 26K, and then it builds. And as the way EQs, this particular EQ, you can really fine tune what you're trying to do, because as you subtract some of this frequency, something in there you want to bring back, and sometimes you're plussing and minusing frequencies that are really close together depending on what the sound is. Sometimes it's recorded terribly. Sometimes you got to really get in there and butcher a sound. It's a kick from a really dirty record or a snare, and you want to add some bright end, add some high end, but then you want to take some hiss out, and you want to take out some bass, but you want some mid-range. And so this is a really good EQ for that, because you're crossing over and plussing and going crazy and just chopping shit up, and this is perfect for that. Same with the API. And then as we come over here to this other rack, this is the compressor section. And basically you got your 2 leveling amplifier. These is all similar. It's a newer A820, and basically you got your inputs, how much you want to gain reduce. You know what I'm saying? And just do that. And for me, depending on a natural sound, you want to go to like 3 to 5, something that just kind of fluctuates a little bit. But then you got something like the 1176, where you could go in there and squash the hell out of it. Most people use a 4 to 8. I use a 4. But then you're doing something that you really want to crunch. You want to really just, overloaded sound. You could push them all in. See, you can't. They don't want to stay now. Oh, I lied. One of them. Okay, there you go. It's in there. So basically with this, it's just squashing the hell out of it, and you get different effects as you overload the compressor, input, output. It just gives you a real musical sound. And with this one, you could adjust the attack and release if you want something really attacky, or if it's too attacky and you want to take some of the attack off and make it really smooth, you can do that. And whereas these are preset, as you do more gain reduction, it gives you different attack and release. These you can fine tune them, and then as you go down, my favorite is actually the DBX 160. All my vocals, anytime I record, I got the Neve 1073. I go straight from the mic, straight into the Neve, straight into here, straight to tape. Cleanest signal flow. It's not going through the board. It's not, you're not busting it. You're not, so as you do different tracks, you're just moving from the input to the input to the input, and it gets the cleanest signal possible, because really, you just want the cleanest signal, the cleanest source to really build off of. So if the left stuff you put in line with it, the less electronics, it's just, you're going to get the best transparency and clarity out of it. And, it's really straightforward. Engineers like Alan Sides and a lot of rock guys that I came up watching use this compressor for vocals. And so as I started getting into doing my own thing, I started doing that and brought the Neves with me from Ocean Way Record 1, because that's the engineers were using that, and that slowly incorporated that into my style. And now Eminem has the same thing. Dr. Dre's using it. Everybody's got the 1073. They got the Sony mic. So they all know to have a good source, no matter where you're recording, home studio, this and that, it's going to show really well in the end. And so you have this range of stuff. And so what a compressor does, it helps hold it down. It keeps everything in this range. So as stuff are quieter or louder, it moves in here and you can control it. Someone screams something, there's compression that keeps stuff there, and then there's limiting, which doesn't allow it to go. When it goes past a certain point, it kind of brings that motherfucker back down. It brings them down and says, hold on, stay down there, son. You're getting kind of loud. And so there's compression and there's limiting. And so sometimes you need something to really hold it down, a lot of transients, and there's something in compression. You just want to keep it in this area and keep stuff flowing. And so that's the compressor limiter. As we go down, we got gates and stuff like this. We got apogee converters, and converters really, originally when the converters came out, they were for DAT players to help bring higher resolution. The DAT players had a basic stock A to D converter, and now with apogees and all these other companies that are coming out, They get a higher resolution, a cleaner signal, the less electronics. It's designed just to be a converter. It's not like a combo package, which is a converter and this and that like a DAT player is. So it just leaves the DAT player to be just to record on tape, and you have these fancy converters to improve your signal. It's really noticeable. So, and a lot of people now are recording with Rosetta, the Mini-Me's, the Apogees, and so that's bringing a cleaner signal in to the 001s and the 002s, because they go into the converters and go digital into the Pro Tools, and it gives you a cleaner sound, a cleaner sound, a clear signal path, and it just helps with your quality. So you got this reverb in the board, which is like a 480 Lexicon. It's a standard in every studio. Some people like this sound. For me personally, I just never really got into it. Coming up, a lot of people never used it, so I never really experimented with it. Everybody used the AMS reverb, so I kind of just built it on that. And everything you do as an engineer is a lot of it is just experimenting and watching people. You're always sitting in the back of the room as assistant. You're over here on the patch bay. They want to do this and patch this over here and this over there. And we need this compressor and this and that. And depending on how you grew up or who you watched and how you learned, different people use different things, and that's how you did what you did. Because basically, when you mix, you always need a couple things on hand. You always need a big reverb, small reverb, you need quarter note delay, eighth note delay, and you have these, and what it is on the board, if you can see this on the board, each channel there's reverb sends or aux sends, how they call it. And so for me, the way I used to do it since before the digital age, because before the digital age you had to do everything here. Now you got all your reverbs, your delays are all in the Pro Tools. You don't really use a lot of outboard gear, and the outboard gear you use is really just like the EQs and compressors. But we would have these aux sends, and send 1 would always be the big reverb. Send 2 was the little reverb. Then you had quarter note delay on the left and right. Qs, you had quarter note on the left, eighth note on the right. Then we have like a PCM 70, which would be like a phase or echo, and then you just have some kind of like weird effect. Depending on, you'd have special, different kind of, or one reverb just for one sound or this and that. And then everything would just be, controlled by here. And then it was predetermined, because you'd always, eventually when you did keyboards or some kind of lead line, you want to throw a little bit of echo on there, delay. And so it gave it kind of like Scott Storch sound, for example, like on Big Egos. You have the keyboards that are going, even like on Still DRE, there's a little bit of delay on his keyboard, so it kind of spaces it out, and as you pan a quarter note to the left and the eighth note to the right, and you hit something in the middle, it gives it like a ping pong kind of sound, so you have the main signal, and like going, and and then so that's a trick that Scott Storch uses a lot. It puts a lot of delays on his stuff, because as you play one sound, it just keeps repeating naturally, so as you go, it gives it that flowing, stuttery kind of step, and so that's something that we do a lot with Scott Storch when we work with Scott Storch. We already have, with different clients, different artists, different producers, you already know what kind of effects they like. Some people like a lot of phase, so you already have a phase plugged in, and when they play the keyboards or whatever, you just put a little phase in there naturally. And as you experiment with them, you bring that into other people, and then everybody you work with molds who you are and what you do, and watching and listening, really. And then you develop your listening skills, because there's times where I work with people and I can tell you when they did their vocals, how they did their vocals, if the door was open, the door was closed, this and that. And so that's something that you grow into and you develop. And it's like when you're talking on the phone and someone walks into the bathroom, you're like, oh, did you just walk out of the different, I hear when someone's on the phone inside, outside, in their bed, fucking everywhere. So it's crazy. And you develop the listening for the music. The patch bay. Well, let me make some room for y'all, because you got to get in close to see what's going on over here. So basically, the patch bay is the brains of all the equipment. It's the connection between everything. So basically, as you start at the top, you got the mic lines, and the mic lines really are the jacks out there where you plug in the microphones, and you use, some studios have 24, 48. They all come up here. Usually, you start from out there. You go to the mic, and there's a certain structure the way all boards are set up. It goes from the mic line to the patch bay, and then goes to the mic input or the line input, which depending on which way the module is set up. So you either go mic or line, and then from mic or line, it goes to insert. Then that's the next patch point on the board, on the patch bay. Then it goes to insert. Then it goes to tape monitor, which this is the monitoring section, and this is the channel. And then that's the next point on the patch bay. And then after that, you have the busing. Now the busing is basically kind of like what it means to get on the bus. And basically you get on the bus and you go for a ride, and you basically go to 32 places you can go to, channels 1 through 32. So basically you're going for a ride, and these buses correlate to the tape machine. And the tape machine, for when you're on 2-inch, you only have 24 tracks, so you're really only using the first 24 buses. But when you're using digital, where you can have like 64 inputs, you could take a ride on all 32 buses to the Pro Tools and get that going. And then from there, you got that's the group outputs, and then you got the multi-track monitors going straight into the tape machine. And then you got coming out of the tape machine, and then you go into your effect sends. So you got your effect sends, and that's the two big racks on the side, and you got your compressors, your EQs, your reverbs, and then that's how you communicate with them. And then you got your mults and stuff, and then as you go down, just more outboard gear and different sections in the room where you have outlets to plug in your 2 tracks, your 4 tracks, your 8 tracks, your 24 tracks, your extra patch points, and you keep it moving like that. So we talk about the module. This is a basic module. You know, we're on the SSL board. As we said, we got the buses. We got panning for the buses. You got your compressor section. All SSLs and really all Neves, they have a compressor and a gate section. This is called your dynamic section. So you got your dynamic section, then you got your EQs, which is pretty much standard on every board. You got your high and low filters. You got your highs, your high mids, your low mids, your bass section. Then you got your aux sends, monitor fader, you got your panning, and then you got the large fader. And then also, you know, you're cutting solo. So this cuts the signal, and as you solo, cuts everything else, and solos this one signal. Basic engineering there, and that's the module. Bam. As we dissect the board, we go towards the middle. This is your center section. You see I'm back here to really get you in there to really see what's going on. You got your center section. You got your external patch points. Usually this is where you have your DAT, your cassettes, your CDs, and everything hooked up. Your external patch points. You got your speaker selection, your big speakers, your NS10s, your auxiliary speakers. So usually for me, I use the NS10s and I use the Oratones, switch them back and forth. And the NS10s are basically the standard of studio speakers, and no matter where you go, anywhere, your home studio, another studio, everybody has NS10s, and then basically if it sounds good on NS10s, it's going to sound good anywhere. Then you got the Oratones, which are the smaller cubey looking ones. Those are just mids and highs, and so you lose your bass, but the mids and highs really jump out, and so you get the balance between going both speakers. And the Oratones basically are like car speakers. So if you have a standard car speaker, this is how they would sound. And then, you know, you go up, you got your big boys, you got your tannoys. You got your TAD speakers, you know, Augsburger design, basic standard in all studios. And these particular speakers take a lot of level, they give you a lot of punch, so they're really aggressive, and that's the style of music we do, is really aggressive. Don't be scared, don't be scared, come on in, come on, don't be scared. So basically this is our live room. As you can see, it's pretty big. We do a lot of different stuff. We do bands, we do drums in this little drum booth over here on the side. You know, we got a piano here, we got room to move around and get different, these are called gobos. So basically you can section off different places and different spots in the room, depending on what you're recording. Usually on this rug here, we just bring the gobos, create a little half circle for the vocals, kind of, because when you do vocals, I don't know if you can hear it, it sounds kind of spacey, there's a lot of room. And so when you do vocals, you want to enclose it in to get a nice tight sound on the vocals. So when you got a tight sound on the vocals, you could really go in there, and when you brighten stuff up, you don't bring the natural sound of the room in. So it just kind of tightens it up, gets you a nice direct signal. With these gobos, we enclose it in, and you know, you put your headphones on, and we see each other through the glass. And the crazy thing is, for me, every time I do vocals, which now is only for certain people, if Eminem calls or Exhibit calls, I redo vocals with them, but usually I'm just on the mixing side. I'm the after effect. I finish it, I bring it home, and but recording and seeing bands play through the glass is like every time is a private performance. I remember being in a music school, I went to Hamilton Music Academy, and I like performing, but I don't like being on stage. So I enjoy just watching people perform, and being an engineer, I think, was a natural transition for that, to watch people perform. You're always seeing a private show, and it's like a private performance, and that all happens here in the vocal booth, and it all goes down right here. So basically, as we, the room is so big, you got your high ceilings, and also the ceilings are adjusted. You see it's on the flat side. They open up to widen it to give it more of a deadening sound, because behind there is material. We got the gobels to separate the room, make the room a little tighter, and then you got your piano. Every studio has your piano, and man, to mic a piano, you're not going to get that kind of sound. I wish I could play, man. I took some private lessons. I think my mom would be mad that all that money got to waste, and my piano lessons, were bad, but, micing a piano, a lot of stuff with Dre that people don't realize is we used a lot of live sounds. We used a lot of live musicians. Kamara Cambone would always come out here, and we do songs. We do live piano. We do, we wouldn't really be looping the keyboards. We wouldn't sequence the keyboards. With the musicians there, Mike Elizondo, be playing for 5 minutes. Back then, the song would just be 5 minutes long, because you never knew if you wanted a long intro, a short intro. You just gave 5 minutes. And he would just play the bass for 5 minutes. Okay, good. Now the guitar player, his turn. We'd do one person at a time, then we get the guitar, and so you could listen. They made a mistake, you'd write that number down, you'd look at the counter, and be like, okay, 2 minutes, he made a mistake. You go, is it go? Okay, 3 minutes, he made a mistake, but it would be a live take. And you just punch in the pieces that were a mistake and fix those, and it'd just be one continuous live take. And with live performances, there's little nuances that as you play the bass and you get the guitar and you hear, and it's natural sounds. And even like with the piano, when Kamar would come in and play, he'd hit little ghost notes and little runs that he only hit one time because he bumped the other note, and stuff like this that you don't get when you just loop 4 bars or loop 8 bars. And it was just like really a song loop. It'd be the sections, but each one would be a little bit different to give it that feel that was just like, people would be like, man, it just feels natural. That's the piano.